Each city has its stories and tales. We see them as beautiful portraits in the gallery of her memories. Among these paintings, there is one that brings together many contradictions with harmonious colors. Slavery, love, freedom, power, sincerity, and gratitude. A painting that tells us that slavery is not only chains and imprisonment, but sometimes it's a promise, a pledge, or an acknowledgement from which we pull the long chains for life. The picture was painted here in this slave market, Al-Midan market, where white slaves were displayed. Slaves are not only associated with the black color, but also with white, especially with the era of the Mamluks, when young boys were brought from several countries, and from Georgia in particular, to be recruited and trained in Baghdad so that they would become soldiers and administrators in the ranks of the Mamluks. In this market, Adela Khatun was walking with her father, Ahmed Pasha, the governor of Baghdad, when she saw the slave Suleiman Abu Layla, as he would later be called, tied up and offered for sale. His owner was holding the end of the ropes and negotiating with the bidders to sell him for the highest possible price. He caught her eye. She felt he would be her future. So she said to her father, "My dad, buy us this one." So he bought him to introduce him to the world of military training and the acquisition of sciences and language, to become after that military or administrative, so that the Mamluks take the place of the Janissaries, who are no longer trusted. Then came the time of the wedding. The competition between the candidates were fierce, so she had to liquidate one of the marriage candidates, who was one of the great commanders of the army. And after the wedding, Suleiman continued his rise to power until he reached the Wali, governor of Baghdad. Suleiman Abu Layla came to power after the death of her father, Ahmed Pasha. Suleiman is one of the most famous Mamluk rulers of Iraq, around whom many folk tales have been woven, even legends about his courage, including the lion he killed and the Wali Ahmed he saved. He was declared Governor Wali after the Janissaries launched a crushing rebellion in Baghdad that lasted 3 days, during which they bombarded the Sarai building. After his victory, the situation settled down and his reign lasted 30 years. He was nicknamed the Lion, the Night Walker. He was roaming Baghdad at night to prevent robbery and arrest gangs. So he once chased a gang that had stolen money from Baghdad to Damascus to catch it there and return the money and the thieves. Under his rule, the country stabilized after a long period of turmoil. But on the other side, he was very weak in front of his lady Adela Khatun, because he adhered to all her conditions throughout his life and until his death. So she controlled him as if he were her little one child. He was obeying her blindly. She prevented him from marrying another wife. So she gave birth to no son or daughter and prevented him from having a female slave. And he had no harem, not even a servant. He blindly followed her orders. He even executed them without hesitation, even that of killing his brother-in-law because of competition for power. The German-born historian Carsten Yabur referred to Adela Khatun, calling her a very firm lady, and that she was behind the firmest decisions of her husband and was probably his main guide. She chaired the councils. She was fixing days to consider the complaints and grievances of the people, whereas it was the prerogative of the Wali. She was her husband's strongest support through her experience and cunning. So she was able to protect him from the plots that were brewing around him. In other words, she was the real ruler. Suleiman remained faithful to his wife through his life. He will bring this recognition to her for having chosen him as her husband throughout his life, as if he had lived for her like an incense stick that burns to perfume, and as if all his victories and conquests were for her. He kept his promise to her until the last day of his life. His life story was one of love and gratitude for this woman. Did he love her for her qualities, or did he love her for her position and for having chosen him and made him the master of the city and the country? Was it a matter of exchanging positive positions? It is difficult to define love. It's a mixture of fidelity, often reciprocal sacrifice. It enters into the framework of ethics, values, appreciation, gratitude, respect, and sharing between two hearts that have dedicated themselves to each other within a common life. Love is like the poem of The Drunken Boat by the poet Rimbaud, a boat that rocks on the breaking waves to successfully cross the seas until it reaches the shore of safety. This, it succeeds in its journey, or that it sinks when the sailors do not make an effort to keep it afloat. Love is the chain of gratitude that he carried throughout his life without even dreaming of breaking it one day. Love is a stability, serenity, the challenge of absence. And you want a drop of good news, and God wants to give you the rain. And you want a star from your wishes, and God chooses to send you the moon. And you want to make a living, and God wants to give you pearls. And you continue to strive with your steps with enthusiasm, and God gives to whom he wills, if he were grateful. But God forbids if he wishes wisely. So you must consent to the judgment of fate.